At Silverhammer Surveillance, we are security and smart home specialists, and we talk about both on the channel. Now, I know there are channels dedicated to Apple out there, there are channels dedicated to Google, channels dedicated to Amazon, and then other smart home platforms. And when we're talking about security and smart home, I've been asked before by our customers, I've been asked for people to watch the channel. We've seen you talk about Apple, we've seen you talk about Google specifically. You've only talked about Amazon or Ring in passing when you're talking about the other two. So why is that? Well, today I address the elephant in the room. Let's find out. What up, everybody? It's George Langenbeer with Silverhammer Surveillance. And today we are talking about Amazon for smart home, and we're talking about Ring on the security side of things. And what is my take on it? Again, people ask me all the time, why don't you ever talk about Ring? You actually have Ring in your showroom. When we come in, why don't you talk about it? Or if you do, what do you have to say about it? On the channel, we've seen you talk about Apple. We've seen you talk about Google. We can tell you're an Apple lover, which I am. But I do like Google products. And what about Amazon? What about Ring? So what is my take on that? When it comes to Ring and Amazon, I've got pros and I've got cons. So let's get into that. When you're talking about the pros, let's talk with the pros. Let's talk about the positive first. It goes all the way back to the beginning. We have a pretty complicated history with Ring and Amazon here at Silverhammer, but let's go back to the beginning. Now, the gentleman that invented the Ring video doorbell, I applaud him. I think it's awesome. He was on Shark Tank. They rejected him. He said, screw you. I'm going to make this device work. He did make it work. He started the video doorbell revolution, which kind of changed the complete surveillance world. I mean, back in the day, when I first started doing this, only shady people had cameras on their house. People were watching you if you had cameras, the police, that is. They thought you were a drug dealer or whatever. But man, when he came out with that video doorbell with the Ring and made it so mainstream and socially acceptable, it changed everything. It started to help law enforcement. It branched into other cameras being acceptable. People started getting cameras left and right. But the video doorbells alone started the revolution. I love that. As a small business guy, I think it's so cool that he said screw you to Shark Tank and made it work. And then as a small business guy, I'm envious that he sold it to Amazon for $1 billion. I mean, I applaud him. But what I also liked about him, and one of the cool things about Ring at the beginning, was when he started helping law enforcement, he really got into it. He started the Ring neighborhoods, and as a crook catcher, as a guy that's been catching criminals for over 20 years, I thought that was cool because he really started to help. They really started to, help communities. The Nextdoor app or neighborhood watches, they were using those video doorbells and then eventually other Ring products to solve crimes left and right, and that's awesome. So for me, as Silverhammer, when we were selling surveillance cameras and we were starting to get in the smart home world, when the video doorbell came out, we jumped all over it. So I thought that was really cool. I applaud him. I applaud what he stood for once he kind of got into it and really kind of got excited about helping communities. So that was a big positive for me is him and his philosophy and just making that work and what he turned it into. And it's just a big success story. So I like that a lot. What are some of the other pros? When you're talking about Amazon, I think their smart home platform is awesome. There's just a ton of devices. I mean, neck and neck with Google, but I think Amazon takes it as far as the device is compatible with Alexa. So, and the way they make their products, at least their displays and their speakers, I think they're very well made. I think their speakers sound awesome. I think their smart display, the new Echo Show is cool. I mean, they're just well-made products, a lot of cool features. So in the smart home world, I like that. Another big pro is innovation. And I'm talking more about Ring in this case than I am Amazon. Amazon can be innovative and they've got a lot of cool features in their smart home side. But on the Ring side, I got to give it to them for innovation. I mean, they started the video doorbell revolution. And yeah, you can't give Amazon credit for that, but we're talking about Ring in general. They've got a lot of cool concepts from their smart lighting. They branch out a lot, and I like that. Smart lighting, the spotlight. They were kind of the first to do the spotlight. Sirens on their cameras. The battery, the solar power version of their cameras. Awesome. I mean, there's a lot of times when we install cameras, we're at the mercy of the house. Sometimes we can't run wires certain places. We don't want to be like the cable company where you got cables all over the outside of your house. Sometimes that can be challenging when we're doing a wired camera system or even a Wi-Fi camera system that requires power. Ring was kind of the first to really bring the solar panel to the forefront, and that was awesome. I mean, it was game changer. So you could power cameras through solar power, and yeah, they've been doing that a long time with other cameras, but for the mainstream, Ring really brought it to the mainstream, and so I got to applaud them for that. But the way they dabble, I mean, their flying camera that flies through your house. I mean, whatever you think about it, privacy-wise or whatever, the concept is just cool, and the fact that they're thinking outside the box, I got to hand it to them for innovation. I mean, they're always trying to innovate, even now that Amazon's taken over. Yeah, an inventor kind of gave birth to it all, but Amazon's still trying, and I appreciate that. So, because you got to innovate. I mean, in the world of technology, you got to just keep coming with new stuff, and you can't let it get stale. I mean, technology is always changing. So I got to appreciate that. I think their features in general are awesome. I mean, like I said, you got a spotlight, you've got sirens, you've got an actual alarm system, you've got cameras, you've got smart lighting, all that combined in the smart home. They've got smart bulbs now. All the things that you can think of smart home related or smart security related, they've got it covered. And whether you can control it all with your Amazon Echoes and Echo Shows, and they all work together. So whether it's Amazon or Ring, it's just kind of like Google and Nest, but all work together great. So keep innovating, Ring. Keep innovating, Amazon. Keep it coming. Now with Matter in the smart home world, check out our video on Matter with all these different platforms combining all the devices that are possible to use with everything the above, using your Echo with Google devices or your Echo with Apple devices or vice versa is great. Matter is going to be a game changer, and I can't wait to see what Amazon and Ring does with that. I mean, again, their innovation is second to none, and keep it coming. So the pros with Amazon and Ring, I mean, are kind of similar. You've got one of the richest man in the world starting Amazon. You've got a guy that made $1 billion off the sale of Ring to Amazon that invented Ring. Huge American success stories. You can't fault that. I love that as pros. Our founder of Ring, I love where he was going. I love that he's trying to help the community. It's awesome that he kept coming with products, trying to help law enforcement. I think their relationship with law enforcement has kind of gone a little south, but still, that's not his fault. He meant well, and his heart was in the right place. And as a small business guy that catches crooks, I appreciate that. So that's a huge pro. And then again, innovation. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. So that being said, let's talk about the cons, and let's talk about that elephant in the room. Why I don't necessarily talk about Ring in my showroom. Why I don't make videos on Ring or Amazon. Amazon's a little different than Ring, but let's talk about that. All right. So number one, quality of products. I think Amazon does a much better job at this than Ring, even though they're kind of the same company. But Amazon, I love their smart home products like the Echo devices. I think they're really well made. I think the features are awesome. I think, high quality, the speakers, when you're talking music or you're talking sound, they sound great. They've got a nice build to them. I mean, the new Echo Show is really cool. But then on the flip side, Amazon does things, like their tablets. I thought their tablets felt cheap. I thought their operating system felt cheap. The Fire Stick, stuff like that, it's kind of like from one end of the spectrum to the other, and I don't get that. So you've got these awesome Echo devices, but then you've got these cheap. I mean, I know they're trying to make it cost effective, and I appreciate that. You got to have options for every budget. So I think that's really cool. But the quality is almost like too cheap sometimes. Where on the flip side, you've got these Echo devices that you can't believe you're only paying a certain amount for them. They seem like they should be more money. So I don't get that. But one of my problems is the quality. And then that goes into Ring. Unfortunately, I just think Ring is very cheaply made. And that is my biggest gripe. We've got like the Nest IQ, yeah, it doesn't exist anymore, but that was just a really well-made camera. Even the little Logitech Circle View, the well-made camera, Ring a lot of times is just cheap plastic. Going back several years, when the video doorbell revolution, I kind of talked about how they started it. Well, as a smart home guy and as a security guy, I was really excited when that video doorbell came out. And at first, we didn't have another option to offer. So I was excited, and I started offering Ring. And I got to tell you, probably about 40% of the time out of the box, those doorbells did not work at the beginning. I think they've improved, but man, still got weather issues. We've got customers all the time, or people calling us all the time, asking us to replace their Ring video doorbell with something better because it didn't survive a Nebraska winter. But going back to the beginning, like I said, as a small business guy, I can't put my stamp on things that don't work very well. And that video doorbell made me look like a fool about 40% of the time. And again, they did start to improve it as far as out of the box, but still their quality after the fact just doesn't compare to like a Nest video doorbell or some of the others out there, the Arlo video doorbells. It's just not the same quality. And so with Ring, that's my biggest gripe. Yes, great budget-friendly options, better than nothing, but the quality. I mean, look at this camera here. I could, it shakes in the breeze. If the wind blew, I feel like if I sneeze too hard, it would fall apart. A thief could crush this with their hand. I mean, every time I show a customer this device in my showroom, this little piece falls off. I just can't put my stamp on that kind of thing. So when somebody comes in here, it's just hard for me to sell it. I mean, some people are just huge Amazon fans and huge Ring fans, and they just want that. And I find myself talking them out of it just because as a small business guy, yes, they want this item, and I don't want to give them something they don't want. But as a small business guy, I can't put my stamp on it because if it fails, it becomes my problem. And so with Ring, it becomes my problem a lot, and I just don't like that. It's cool that we've got a variety of options to install. This goes back to the features. The solar panel, sometimes when we can't run wires, Ring gives us a great option, but man, and then that stuff fails, especially here in Nebraska when you talk about weather or vandals or whatever it is. I mean, they're just so easily destroyed or fails because of weather, whatever it is. I just can't put my stamp on it, and that's a problem. So quality is big for me. I mean, the thought is there. I understand why they do it for the budget. They've got to have that budget-friendly option. But come on, there's other options out there that seem to be able to do it just for a little bit more or sometimes even less, but better quality. So Ring, you mean well, but I can't put my stamp on your quality. So that's con number one. Now, it's crazy. Like, I understand when Amazon bought Ring, why those devices come out, they're just not a little better made. And I keep giving them a try thinking they're going to improve, and they don't. So I don't know if they just need to have two lines, like a Ring Junior or whatever it is. One's affordable, one's a little bit more high quality. I don't know what it is, but quality is number one. Okay, con number two is features. If you look at my last video on home security or some of my other videos, when you buy a surveillance camera, and this, with features, we're talking about Ring specifically. Amazon, their smart home devices loaded with features. I can't complain there. They're awesome. But when we're talking about Ring, I'm talking about security cameras and securing your home or your business, and forget about it. I mean, I think Ring tries to market to some businesses, especially with their security system, but I'm just not there. Now on the home front, features. Their cameras, they don't believe in the facial recognition, and I understand why. They've got a good reason for it. But other cameras out there, one of the huge features of a surveillance camera or a smart camera especially is facial recognition. Watch my last video where I talk about burglar alarms versus security cameras and why I think cameras are better than burglar alarms. And a lot of it's because of facial recognition and having alerts before somebody gets in your home. Now, Ring's got pretty specific and sophisticated motion alerts, but they don't do that facial recognition, so it kind of lacks. There are certain times when people install a Ring video doorbell, if they've got a bush by their front door and that thing blows in the breeze, you're getting alerts all day long. My problem with it is you start to ignore those alerts because you think it's the bush blowing, and then somebody steals your package or whatever, and you realize it, and you couldn't have caught it live. You could have scared them away with the two-way audio, but you didn't even look because you thought something else was setting it off, a passing car, your dog, your cat, whatever it is. I mean, I think they're just lacking in that kind of features, and specifically the facial recognition. I think they kind of need to, I think they're being a little stubborn about that, and I think they need to get over it and just kind of start offering that stuff, because some of the things are great, but some of the things that are great are also kind of lacking in actual execution. So let's say the spotlight, for example. Ring's got a spotlight camera. Those spotlights are great, but the lighting, compared to an actual electrical fixture you'd go buy at Home Depot or Lowe's. It's just not even the same thing. I think on the commercial or whatever, they just make that light look like it lights up your whole yard. It's a pretty weak light. Also, those cameras are just so easily destroyed. When a thief sees that light, they could just go hit that thing with a broom and destroy that camera. So I don't, the idea is there, the thought is there. It's a wonderful thing to have a camera integrated with a light. I mean, that's beautiful innovation, but the execution is just kind of lacking, and that's my problem. And as a small business guy, I just don't want the stuff I'm selling to look cheap, and that light just kind of makes it look cheap. Same thing with their two-way audio. They've got speakers, which two-way audio on a camera can be huge. And I've talked about this before. You can scare people away when you see them, and if you get the proper alert, that's where facial recognition come in. You get an alert that there's a person in your yard, they don't belong there, talk through the two-way audio and scare them away. Well, Ring, you kind of got to be right up on the camera. And yeah, it's decent, but it's not what it should be. There's other cameras that blow it away, and not for much more, sometimes less money. So again, the thought is there, and they really kind of started again with the video doorbell, the two-way audio thing. Two-way audio is huge because you can make people think you're home when you're not. You can scare people away. So the thought is there, the innovation is there, but the execution, that's kind of where they fail. So again, on all the front with Ring, I think they mean well. I think they always have, but the execution is just kind of lacking. And again, as a small business guy, I put my reputation on the stuff that I offer, and Ring just can make me look bad sometimes. And that's my issue. So features is a problem. No facial recognition. What they do have, execution is kind of poor. Sorry. All right, moving on to my last con. My last con, and this is a big one, is privacy. Now, I know everybody worries about privacy with smart devices, and trust me, I'm one of them. I'm a smart home king. I've got all this stuff myself. Obviously, you're going to worry about privacy. Now, when you're talking about all these smart devices, obviously the big dogs are Apple, Google, Amazon. And I got to say that Apple has gone a little psycho with it in a good way. They've been bit in the butt enough times that they kind of figured it out, and now they just go crazy with it to the point where they're kind of pissing off people like Facebook and all that stuff. But they're really kind of listening to their customers that they just want privacy first and foremost, and that's great. They've kind of got the message that is bleeding over into HomeKit, which is their smart home platform, and HomeKit Secure Video, which is their security camera platform. So the privacy is really kind of going hardcore, and it's for the customer's advantage, and I love that. Google, same thing. They kind of got a lot of crap about certain things they did. When their security system came out, it had a built-in microphone in it for the Google Assistant, and they didn't tell anybody until all of a sudden the feature was live. Now, they claim they weren't using that microphone until that feature went live, and I do believe them, but they caught a lot of flack for that. And I don't blame people for being upset. But they took stuff like that, and now with Google, just like Apple, you can pretty much opt in to any privacy thing you want. I mean, they just give you a list of all the things they're doing. You opt in or out. Now, is it really easy to find that sometimes? No, but they do give you that option. But unlike Amazon, which a lot of things you're already opted in, whether you know it or not, they don't opt you in unless you select it to be opted in with Google, and definitely with Apple. So the privacy thing with those two has kind of gotten a lot better. With Amazon, I'm just not seeing the improvement. They say they're working on it, but I'm sure my Ring display, which is to my right, I'm sure they're watching and listening to me right now. I'm just convinced of it. Amazon's new service, Amazon Sidewalk, is a perfect example of this. Brilliant idea. Everybody's got mesh routers nowadays where these routers form a huge mesh Wi-Fi network in your home, and it really helps your Wi-Fi service. Well, they're kind of doing that with their Amazon devices called Amazon Sidewalk, where other Amazon devices with your neighbors will form a network, and it really helps strengthen the network in your Amazon devices, which is great. The innovation is fantastic, but one of the problems is it's automatically enabled in your settings, and you got to go in there and turn that off. Well, what if you don't want to share, with your neighbors? What if you don't want to have a network with your neighbors? What if you don't like your neighbor? I just think they should have that off, and then you go in and turn it on. And that's one of those things with privacy. And again, it just kind of goes back and wraps this whole thing up. Innovation, but the execution, it's just kind of, I don't want to say shady, but it's just not there. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, my take on Amazon and Ring. So for the people that ask me why I don't really include it, it's because I just don't have enough pros to overtake the cons. And as a small business guy, I got to consider that, because I got to offer what I really believe in and what I would put my stamp on, and what I think people will, the quality that's going to last people and not come back on me and make me look bad. So there you go. Those are my pros. Those are my cons in a nutshell. So tell me what you think. What are your thoughts? Are you an Amazon person, a Google person, an Apple person, or another smart home platform? I mean, I'm just an enthusiast on all the above, and I mean well for Ring. I mean well for Amazon. I want Matter. I hope it just brings it all together, and we live in a one big happy smart world, and privacy gets to where it should be, and everything's cool, and everything gets convenient, and everything gets secure. I can't wait for it all to happen. But in the meantime, I gotta just put my stamp on what I can put my stamp on. So hopefully this kind of solves the riddle as to why you don't hear me talk about Ring and Amazon. And hopefully I get there. Hopefully something changes and I'll become a huge believer. But anyway, hopefully you like this video. Come back for more tech talk, security talk. I tell some crazy shoplifter stories from back in my loss prevention days. Check out what loss prevention is if you don't know how it all makes sense with smart home and security. It brought me to the dance. Just watch one of my videos. It'll make more sense. But again, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. We'll be back for more next week. Until then, peace and love.